One of the CEO of Whole Foods is John Mackey, and we were all great friends in those days, as we are today, of course. But one of the things that we would do, just interpersonally, was we would play a lot of cards and board games. And so John Mackey was actually over at my house that evening, and my wife and I and John and somebody else were there playing games, and they started calling in the evening from the store and talking about how it was raining so much that they had become aware that the creek was rising. And we said, well, I'm sure that'll be fine. You know, don't worry about that creek. And so they called back a little bit later and said the creek was over the banks of Shoal Creek. And we said, well, that's kind of interesting. It's probably, we couldn't imagine that would have any bad effect, though, on our store. It just never occurred to us. They called back a little bit later and said, well, it's now pooling in the street in front of us, and it's kind of starting to look kind of dangerous. So we said, well, you should probably get some towels and bags of beans and stuff and put it underneath the door to try to keep the water out in case it gets that high. And they called back a little bit later and said, the water is up to our waist in the store and we are leaving. And that was pretty traumatic for us. The people that were calling were John Mackey's girlfriend, Renee Lawson, and also our good friend Jeff Martin, who went on to tremendous fame with the Martin Brothers ice cream bar, and they had a restaurant, and they made dressings that were famous for a long time. But Jeff and Renee were closing the store that night, and they had to basically swim out of the store. And we just didn't know what to do, and we hung around the house for a while and finally couldn't stand it any longer. And sometime in the middle of the night, when we felt like the rains had subsided enough, we drove down there, made our way down there, and realized that some disaster had befallen the city as we had to snake our way down. We lived up off Koenig, and after we had to snake south to downtown to see where it was, and we made the mistake of approaching the store from the east on the other side of Shoal Creek, and so we actually had to wade across. The water was falling by then, but we still had to wade across Lamar in order to get into the store. And as we entered the store, we realized that something very terrible had happened, and it was obviously a complete and total disaster.